Knock yourself out. I don't do that.
No, I try not to knock myself out.
Are you ready, Tim?
I am not Tom Reardon. Hello, everybody.
Are you ready, Tim?
I'm ready.
Yes.
I'd like to talk about cities that surf. Because I'm passionate about Leeds and about the north, and I kind of saw this as an opportunity to talk about cities that surf by way of analogy, example, and metaphor. And the example that we're going to use is this: the Gormley brick man that never happened. Back in 1988, there was a civic commission to establish an art installation, the brick man, that never actually happened. But 10 years later, down the way, this fella rocked up with a surfboard under his arm in Gateshead. Who would have thought it? Now, at the time, Anthony Gorman was rather scathing about the fact that it never came off, and his view was that it was a lack of nerve on the part of the councils who denied it planning permission. But actually, it wasn't all about lack of nerve. It was the 80s. It was difficult. People didn't want the council to be investing £600,000 in this big brick thing. And here's an example of kind of why you've got to give the council a bit of slack here. If you look at this is kind of friction and inertia, and you've got governance mechanisms here, and you've got commerce and art and fashion up there, and really that's where the brick man was. So, talking about cities that surf, without wishing to get old geography teacher about it, surfing, this is how a surfing wave is made. You've got tides of wind and currents pointing in the direction. And the ideal time is when you've got a reef there that makes it really kind of dangerous. So I'll talk about some of those tides of change, and one of those is devolution. That's why that's one of the things that the North is being heralded with, the opportunity of devolution. But actually, devolution can only go so far if it's rested in those institutions which don't really understand the way that times have changed. So what I'm kind of saying is that these institutions need to open up and be a bit more flexible and be willing to surf the wave, as exampled by the Northern Futures Hack event, which Nick Clegg organised. He wasn't there, I hate to say it. One of those other currents of change is that we're in the networked age now. Things happen differently. You don't have a commission that goes out and tries to persuade people that this is a good idea. Things are much more social now, the power of the crowd, as you could see from things like the poppies down at the Tower of London. Did anyone go and see this wonderful spectacle? Not a soul. You're all true Northerners. Good work, good work. But you know how it worked. People paid for those things. The networked age also means that institutions don't need to hold all the knowledge within themselves anymore. £28 billion is the amount that Google has spent buying up all of these companies now. They don't need to have a big R&D lab. They can go out and buy in that expertise. And the other change that's happened is that innovation is no longer this ephemeral thing, let's innovate. There is a process behind innovation, and it's documented, and it looks a little bit like this. You can't quite see, there's meant to be a double diamond, but the process works in a certain sort of way, and there's an established process, and you can understand your user, and then you can kind of go out and innovate and test different approaches. So what I'm saying is that innovation is out there, and you can make the most of it. And there are organisations out there. This is the Open Works down in Norwood, which is in London. I'm sorry, I hate to mention London, but they've got local residents collaborating to make a better future and a different future. So it's kind of taking that civic space and moving it away. But you remember that reef, the dangerous thing, the tricky bit? Well, austerity is the reef in the room, and that's the thing that's making it really, really a great opportunity to do things differently, because the old ways of doing things won't work anymore. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Barnett graph of doom. I hate to include a graph, I'm really sorry about that, I'm a geography teacher again, isn't it? But what this is saying is basically the amount of budget that the council's got soon won't even cover children's service and social services. So the council hasn't got any money to do innovation and stuff like that. So we need to create new spaces that move on from reefs being just this dead coral to saying, well, actually, here's an opportunity, we've got to do things differently. So what would that mean? How would we go about bringing back the brick man? And this isn't a campaign, I'm not pitching to bring back the brick man, just before anyone kind of gets the wrong idea. But how would that work nowadays? Well, it would probably be something much more like a crowdsourced campaign where there was a community behind it who were paying to have that. So instead of going to the council and saying, well, you give us £600,000 to put a brick man up, you'd probably run a crowd-funded campaign. There was a paper brick. So people could buy bricks and they would buy their own brick man, and we would all build it together. Because that's the way things work nowadays. The old ways of doing things aren't the same. So I guess what I'm saying to the city of Leeds and all those northern cities is it's time to hang 10 dudes. It's time to do things differently. So can we surf? Yes, we probably can, because we know how to do it and we've seen other places do it. So let's do it ourselves.